Do this every morning to change your life. Every great life is shaped before the day begins. Most people wake up and surrender. They surrender to noise, they surrender to fear, they surrender to habit. And then they wonder why life never changes. If you want a different life, you must take control of the first moments of your morning. Because whoever controls your morning controls your future. The moment you open your eyes, your mind is neutral. It is waiting for direction. If you do not give it direction, the world will fill it with doubt, distraction, and weakness. Do not allow that each morning before you speak to anyone, before you touch your phone, before you listen to the opinions of others. You must speak to yourself, not casually, not emotionally, but with authority. You must declare out loud, if possible, exactly who you are, what you are working toward, and what you demand from yourself today. Your mind accepts repetition. Your subconscious obeys command. And when spoken with certainty, words become law. You are not waking up to see how the day goes. You are waking up to decide how the day goes. See yourself already successful. See the work completed. See the discipline exercised. See the victory claimed, because the mind cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined act and a real one, and it will move your body in the direction of the picture you hold. This is not hope. This is conditioning. Every morning, remind yourself that comfort is the enemy, that discipline is the price of freedom, that today matters because days accumulate and habits compound. Do not negotiate with weakness. Do not delay action. Decide once, then act. The person you will become is built quietly, in those early minutes when no one is watching, when excuses are tempting, when discipline must speak louder than emotion. Do this every morning. Control your thoughts. Define your purpose. Command your actions. And I promise you this, when you win the morning, you win the day. When you win the day repeatedly, you change your life. No noise, no distraction, only focus, purpose, and action. That is the formula. Begin every morning with a definite purpose, because the moment you wake up without one, you have already handed control of your life to chance. A mind without direction is not free. It is vulnerable. It drifts, it reacts, it obeys whatever voice speaks the loudest. Purpose is the first act of leadership you must practice each day. And if you fail to practice it in the morning, you will spend the rest of the day practicing excuses. The most dangerous habit a person can form is waking up and waiting. Waiting to feel motivated. Waiting to feel confident. Waiting to see how the day unfolds. Life does not reward waiting, it rewards decision. When you rise with a clear, definite purpose, you are not asking the day what it will bring. You are telling it what you will take from it. Purpose sharpens the mind. It gathers scattered energy and turns it into force. Without purpose, effort leaks. With purpose, even small actions gain weight and direction. A definite purpose is not a vague wish or a hopeful thought. It is a decision made in advance. It is knowing exactly what you are working toward and why it matters so deeply that quitting is no longer an option. When you wake up, your first responsibility is not to check messages or absorb information. It is to remind yourself who you are becoming and what today must contribute to that becoming. The mind must be claimed early before fear, doubt, and distraction rush in to occupy it. Every successful individual understands this truth, whether consciously or by habit. The day is won or lost in its opening moments. When you begin your morning with purpose, you condition your subconscious to search for opportunities instead of obstacles. Your attention becomes selective. You notice what aligns with your goal and ignore what does not. Purpose acts like a filter. It removes the unnecessary and magnifies the essential. Many people confuse activity with progress. They stay busy, but they do not move forward. Purpose eliminates this confusion. It tells you what deserves your time and what does not. It gives you the courage to say no to distractions that look urgent but are ultimately meaningless. When you rise knowing your definite purpose, you move with intention, not impulse. There will be mornings when emotion resists you. Mornings when the body is tired and the mind is heavy. Purpose does not ask how you feel. It does not negotiate. It commands. Feelings are temporary. Purpose is permanent. The discipline of returning to your purpose every morning trains you to act from principle instead of mood. This is how character is built. Quietly, consistently, without applause. A definite purpose also creates momentum. Each day aligned with it becomes evidence that you are capable of directing your life. Confidence grows not from positive thinking, but from repeated proof of self-control. When you wake up with purpose and act on it, you send a powerful message to your mind: you are in charge. Over time, this message reshapes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who follows through. Purpose transforms ordinary mornings into strategic moments. It turns routine into ritual. The simple act of waking up becomes a declaration of intent. You are no longer drifting through life hoping for improvement. You are deliberately constructing it. Every purposeful morning adds another brick to the structure of your future. Understand this clearly. The world does not reward potential, only direction combined with action. Talent without purpose is wasted. Intelligence without purpose is scattered. Hard work without purpose is exhausting. Purpose gives meaning to effort and endurance to struggle. It reminds you why sacrifice is necessary and why persistence is non-negotiable. When you begin each morning with a definite purpose, you stop living reactively. You stop allowing circumstances to dictate your attitude. Instead, you carry an inner compass that keeps you oriented no matter what the day brings. Challenges no longer feel personal, they feel instructional. Delays no longer discourage you, they refine you.
This practice does not require perfect conditions. It requires commitment.
Commitment to decide before the day decides for you. Commitment to return to your purpose even when yesterday fell short. Commitment to growth over comfort, direction over ease, intention over habit. A life of significance is not created in dramatic moments. It is built in disciplined mornings. The decision to begin each day with a definite purpose separates those who merely exist from those who progress. Purpose is the silent force that shapes choices, strengthens resolve, and transforms time into achievement. Each morning you claim it, you move one step closer to the life you have chosen rather than the life that happens by default. Command your mind before the world does, because if you do not give it orders, it will accept instructions from fear, distraction, and the opinions of others without resistance. The mind is not naturally disciplined, it is naturally receptive. Whatever enters it repeatedly becomes familiar, and whatever becomes familiar eventually feels true. This is why control must be established early and deliberately, before outside voices rush in to claim authority over your thoughts. From the moment you wake up, the world is competing for your attention. News, messages, noise, expectations, and pressure all demand access to your thinking. None of them ask for permission. If you open your day passively, your mind becomes a battlefield where you are not the commander, but the casualty. To command your mind is to decide in advance what it will focus on, what it will ignore, and what it will refuse to believe. Most people allow their thoughts to wander without supervision. They react emotionally, think automatically, and then wonder why they feel powerless. Power begins when thought becomes intentional. When you deliberately choose your dominant thoughts, you shape your perception, and perception determines behavior. This is not philosophy, it is cause and effect. The mind moves the body, and the body moves the world. Commanding your mind means refusing to let circumstances dictate your inner state. It means understanding that external events have no meaning until you assign one. Two people can face the same situation and experience entirely different outcomes, not because of the event, but because of the thoughts they attach to it. Mastery begins when you recognize this and take responsibility for your mental responses. Fear is the first enemy of an unguarded mind. It arrives quietly, disguised as logic and caution. If left unchallenged, it grows stronger through repetition. Commanding your mind requires confronting fear the moment it appears, questioning its authority, and replacing it with deliberate thought. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the refusal to let fear issue commands. Distraction is the second enemy. A distracted mind cannot execute purpose. It jumps from thought to thought, never staying long enough to create momentum. When you command your mind, you train it to stay focused on what matters most, even when less important stimuli attempt to pull it away. Focus is not a talent. It is a trained behavior, reinforced by daily discipline. The third enemy is borrowed thinking. Many people live by ideas they did not choose, beliefs they never examined, and limitations imposed by others. When you fail to command your mind, you inherit conclusions that do not serve you. True independence begins with mental sovereignty, the courage to think for yourself and decide what you will accept as truth. Commanding your mind also means controlling your inner dialogue. The words you repeat silently shape your self-image. If that dialogue is critical, doubtful, or defeated, your actions will reflect it. When you intentionally direct your inner speech, you strengthen confidence and resilience. The mind believes what it hears most often, especially when spoken with conviction. This discipline is not achieved in a single moment. It is built through repetition. Each time you interrupt a negative thought and replace it with a constructive one, you strengthen your authority. Each time you choose focus over distraction, you reinforce control. Over time, commanding your mind becomes habitual, and what once required effort becomes automatic. External success is always preceded by internal order. Chaos in thought produces chaos in results. When your mind is aligned, your decisions become clearer, your actions more decisive, and your energy more concentrated. You no longer waste strength on unnecessary worry or comparison. You move forward with clarity instead of confusion. Understand this clearly. The world will always attempt to define you, limit you, and distract you. It benefits from minds that are unfocused and easily influenced. When you command your mind, you step outside that system. You become less reactive and more deliberate. You choose your direction instead of drifting toward what is convenient or expected. Mental command does not mean ignoring reality. It means interpreting it wisely. It means acknowledging challenges without magnifying them and recognizing opportunities without hesitation. A commanded mind remains steady under pressure because it has been trained to respond rather than react. This practice shapes identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who decides, not someone who waits. Confidence grows from this self-trust. You no longer depend on motivation from outside sources because your mind is under your own authority. Discipline replaces dependence, and clarity replaces noise. When you command your mind before the world does, you protect your potential. You ensure that your thoughts work for you instead of against you. Each day you practice this control, you strengthen your ability to direct your life with intention. The world may be loud, unpredictable, and demanding, but a commanded mind remains focused, resilient, and free. Claim control over your thoughts immediately upon waking, because the first thoughts of the day quietly set the direction for everything that follows. In those early moments, your mind is most impressionable, not yet hardened by stress, comparison, or outside influence. Whatever occupies your thinking at that time gains an unfair advantage, and if you do not choose those thoughts deliberately, habit and fear will choose them for you. When you wake up, your mind is not empty, it is open. It is searching for direction, waiting for instruction. Many people allow old worries, unfinished problems, and imagined difficulties to rush in without resistance. By the time they leave their bed, they are already tired, already defeated, already behind. This is not because the day is difficult, but because control was surrendered before the day even began. To claim control is to interrupt this automatic process. It is to pause and decide what will occupy your mental space. The thoughts you allow in the first minutes of the morning do not stay isolated. They echo throughout the day. A thought repeated becomes an attitude. An attitude repeated becomes behavior, and behavior repeated becomes destiny. This is why morning thinking is not a small matter. It is foundational. The mind does not distinguish between intentional thoughts and habitual ones unless you train it to do so. Left alone, it returns to familiar patterns, even when those patterns are limiting or destructive. Claiming control means refusing to relive yesterday's failures or borrow tomorrow's worries. It means anchoring your thinking in purpose instead of prediction. This practice requires awareness. You must notice the direction your thoughts are trying to take you and correct them immediately. If your first thought is fear, replace it with resolve. If it is doubt, replace it with decision. If it is distraction, replace it with clarity. The speed of this correction matters. The longer a thought remains unchallenged, the stronger its influence becomes. Control does not mean pretending challenges do not exist. It means choosing how you will interpret them. A problem acknowledged with calm focus becomes manageable. The same problem viewed through anxiety becomes overwhelming. By claiming control early, you establish emotional balance before pressure appears. You train your mind to respond with intention rather than panic. Your thoughts upon waking also shape your self-image. If you rise thinking of yourself as behind, unprepared, or incapable, your actions will confirm that belief. If you rise thinking of yourself as disciplined, capable, and purposeful, you begin the day aligned with that identity. The mind strives for consistency between thought and behavior, and it will work to prove whatever identity you accept. This is why repetition is essential. One controlled morning does not change a life. Consistent control does. Each day you consciously choose your thoughts, you strengthen your mental authority. Over time, the mind learns to default to constructive patterns. What once required effort becomes instinctive, and mental clarity becomes your natural state. Many people search for motivation in external sources, but motivation that depends on outside conditions is unreliable. When you control your thoughts at waking, you generate internal motivation. You remind yourself of your purpose, your direction, and your standards. This creates a steady drive that does not rise and fall with mood or circumstance. Discipline in thought precedes discipline in action. A mind that begins the day scattered will struggle to focus later. A mind that begins the day intent. Ionel carries that structure forward. This is why productivity is not a matter of time management alone. It is a matter of thought management. Control the thought and action follows. There will be mornings when resistance appears. The mind will attempt to return to comfort, avoidance, or negativity. This is not failure, it is training. Each time you redirect your thoughts despite resistance, you reinforce your command. Strength is built in these moments, not in ease. The world will offer endless reasons to think small, delay action, or lower standards. By claiming control immediately upon waking, you create a mental barrier against this influence. You decide what enters your mind and what does not. This selective thinking preserves energy and sharpens focus. A life directed by conscious thought is not accidental, it is deliberate. When you control your thoughts at the start of each day, you are not reacting to life, you are shaping it. The quality of your thinking determines the quality of your decisions, and the quality of your decisions determines the direction of your life. Each morning you claim control, you move one step closer to becoming the person your potential demands you to be. Affirm your identity, not your circumstances, because circumstances are temporary conditions while identity is a permanent direction. When you allow your current situation to define how you think about yourself, you surrender your future to the limitations of the present. Circumstances describe where you are, identity determines where you are going. Confusing the two is the reason many people remain trapped in cycles they could rise above. Most individuals speak about their lives as if their conditions are facts carved in stone. They say they are tired because life is hard, limited because opportunity is scarce, or unsuccessful because the timing is wrong. These statements sound reasonable, but they quietly reinforce an identity built on weakness rather than intention. What you repeatedly claim about yourself becomes the framework through which your mind interprets reality. Affirming your identity means declaring who you choose to be, regardless of external evidence. It is not denial, it is direction. The mind requires a clear self-image to organize behavior. When you consistently affirm an identity of discipline, resilience, and purpose, your actions gradually align with that image. Behavior follows belief, not the other way around. Circumstances change slowly, but identity shifts immediately when you decide it. The moment you choose to see yourself differently, you alter the internal standard by which you measure your actions. You stop asking what is easy and start asking what is consistent with who you are becoming. This internal alignment creates momentum that no external condition can stop. Many people wait for their circumstances to improve before they think better of themselves. This is backward. Improvement begins when self-perception changes first. Confidence is not the result of success, it is the cause of sustained effort. When you affirm a strong identity, you give yourself permission to act boldly even before results appear. The mind is constantly searching for consistency. If you identify as disciplined, your mind will look for ways to support disciplined behavior. If you identify as capable, it will seek solutions instead of excuses. This is why identity-based affirmation is so powerful. It recruits the subconscious to work on your behalf. Affirming identity also shields you from discouragement. When setbacks occur, they no longer threaten who you believe yourself to be. Failure becomes an event, not a verdict. You correct, adjust, and continue because your identity is not dependent on temporary outcomes. This resilience is what separates those who persist from those who quit. Circumstances often speak loudly. They remind you of limitations, past mistakes, and current struggles. If you listen without challenge, they shape your thinking. Affirming your identity is how you counter that influence. You consciously replace reactive thoughts with intentional declarations. Over time, these declarations become internal truths. This process requires repetition and conviction. An identity affirmed once is a thought. An identity affirmed daily becomes a belief. Beliefs drive decisions, and decisions shape destiny. The words you use to describe yourself matter more than the words you use to describe your problems. When you affirm your identity, you take ownership of your internal world. You stop outsourcing your self-worth to external validation or temporary success. This independence creates emotional stability and clarity. You are no longer easily shaken by comparison or criticism because your sense of self is internally defined. Growth demands discomfort, and discomfort often conflicts with circumstances. When you affirm your identity, you accept discomfort as part of the process rather than as a signal to stop. You understand that temporary struggle does not contradict a strong identity, it confirms it. The practice of affirming identity also elevates standards. You begin to act in ways that honor the person you claim to be. You protect your time, choose discipline over indulgence, and persistence over retreat. These choices compound, slowly reshaping your external reality to match your internal definition. The world will constantly try to label you based on your current position, your past, or your results. Accepting those labels limits growth. When you affirm your identity, you refuse to be defined by anything that is still in progress. You recognize that who you are becoming matters more than where you are now. A life directed by identity rather than circumstance is intentional and resilient. When you consistently affirm who you are, your actions follow, your confidence strengthens, and your circumstances eventually respond. The power to rise above conditions begins with the decision to define yourself by purpose, not by limitation. Visualize victory before action begins, because the mind moves toward the picture it holds most clearly. Every deliberate achievement starts as a mental image long before it becomes a physical result. Action without vision is scattered effort. But action guided by a clear inner picture becomes precise, confident, and persistent. When you see the outcome in advance, you give your mind a destination, and it begins organizing behavior to reach it. The imagination is not a place of fantasy. It is a workshop where plans are formed and confidence is built. When you visualize victory, you are rehearsing success before it is required of you. This rehearsal reduces hesitation and replaces uncertainty with familiarity. The mind does not resist what feels familiar, and repeated visualization trains success to feel normal rather than distant. Most people wait to see results before they believe in themselves. Those who move ahead create belief first. Visualization allows you to experience the emotional state of success before circumstances confirm it. This emotional alignment is powerful because feeling precedes action. When you feel capable, you act decisively. When you feel uncertain, you delay. Visualizing victory shifts your emotional state into readiness. The mind cannot clearly distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. It responds to both by activating similar neural patterns. This is why athletes, leaders, and performers mentally rehearse before execution. By the time action begins, the mind has already practiced success, reducing fear and increasing control. Visualization also strengthens focus. When you know exactly what victory looks like, distractions lose their appeal. You stop chasing irrelevant tasks and start prioritizing actions that move you closer to the image you hold. Clarity of vision simplifies decision-making and conserves energy. Doubt often appears before action because the mind is uncertain about the outcome. Visualization replaces this uncertainty with a clear expectation. You are no longer stepping into the unknown, you are moving toward a familiar result. This sense of direction quiets anxiety and strengthens resolve. Visualizing victory does not mean ignoring obstacles. It means seeing yourself overcoming them. You imagine challenges arising and yourself responding with discipline and intelligence. This prepares the mind for resistance and prevents surprise from turning into discouragement. When difficulties appear, they feel like part of the plan rather than a reason to quit. Consistency is essential. A single act of visualization has limited effect, but repeated visualization conditions the subconscious. Each repetition deepens belief and sharpens focus. Over time, the image of success becomes ingrained, influencing behavior automatically. You begin to act in alignment with the person who achieves that outcome. Visualization also shapes identity. When you consistently see yourself winning, leading, completing, and progressing, you internalize that identity. Actions that contradict it feel uncomfortable, while disciplined behavior feels natural. This internal pressure toward consistency strengthens self-control. Many people misunderstand visualization as wishful thinking. In reality, it is preparation. It aligns thought, emotion, and action toward a common goal. When combined with effort, visualization accelerates progress because it reduces internal conflict. The mind and body move in the same direction. Before any significant action, take time to mentally experience the successful outcome. See it clearly. Feel the satisfaction, the confidence, and the calm certainty. This emotional imprint becomes a reference point during execution. When fatigue or doubt arises, the mind remembers the destination and pushes forward. The quality of your visualization determines its effectiveness. Vague images produce weak results. Detailed, emotionally charged images produce strong commitment. The more real the image feels, the more influence it has on behavior. Visualization also improves resilience. When setbacks occur, the image of victory remains unchanged. You adjust tactics without abandoning the goal. This persistence is fueled by a clear vision that survives temporary failure. A directed mind produces directed action. When you visualize victory before action begins, you remove randomness from effort. You step forward with confidence because you have already seen yourself succeed. The mind leads, the body follows, and results eventually align with the picture you refuse to let go of. Condition your mind for discipline, not comfort, because comfort weakens initiative while discipline strengthens direction. The mind naturally seeks ease, familiarity, and avoidance of discomfort, but growth demands the opposite. If you allow comfort to guide your decisions, your potential will remain untouched. Discipline is not a restriction. It is the structure that makes progress possible. Every habit you repeat conditions your mind. When you choose comfort, you train yourself to avoid effort. When you choose discipline, you train yourself to act regardless of mood. The mind does not resist work. It resists uncertainty and discomfort. Discipline removes both by creating predictable standards. When standards are clear, action becomes automatic. Most people believe discipline is something you either have or do not have. This belief itself is an excuse. Discipline is trained through repeated behavior. Each time you do what is necessary instead of what is easy, you strengthen your mental authority. Over time, discipline becomes identity rather than effort. Comfort offers immediate relief but demands long-term payment. Discipline demands immediate effort but offers long-term freedom. The mind must be taught to value delayed reward over instant gratification. This lesson is learned through experience. Know. Intention. Each disciplined action reinforces the understanding that effort produces control. Conditioning your mind for discipline requires redefining discomfort. Instead of viewing it as a threat, you begin to see it as evidence of progress. Discomfort signals that you are stretching beyond old limits. When you interpret it this way, resistance loses its power. The mind learns through association. If discipline is constantly paired with positive reinforcement, such as pride, progress, and self-respect, it becomes desirable. Comfort, when paired with regret and stagnation, loses its appeal. This mental reconditioning shifts behavior without force. Discipline also clarifies priorities. When your mind is conditioned for discipline, decisions are simpler. You no longer debate whether to act. You act because it aligns with your standards. This eliminates internal conflict and conserves energy. Many people wait for motivation to act. Discipline removes this dependency. It creates action first, which then generates motivation. Waiting for comfort to disappear before acting is a losing strategy. Comfort never disappears on its own. It must be overridden by decision. Conditioning requires consistency. Occasional discipline does not rewire the mind. Daily discipline does. Small, repeated acts of self-control build a foundation of reliability. You begin to trust yourself, and that trust strengthens commitment. The environment will constantly encourage comfort. Convenience, distraction, and indulgence are always available. Conditioning your mind for discipline means deliberately choosing against these influences. It is an act of independence. You decide that your long-term vision matters more than temporary pleasure. Discipline also builds resilience. When challenges arise, a disciplined mind does not collapse or complain. It adjusts and continues. This steadiness under pressure is not accidental. It is trained through repeated exposure to controlled discomfort. The mind respects proof. Each time you choose discipline, you prove to yourself that you are capable of control. This proof builds confidence that is quiet and unshakable. You stop needing external validation because you know your standards. Conditioning your mind for discipline changes how you view time. You become willing to invest effort now for results later. This long-term perspective separates those who build from those who drift. Comfort feels safe, but it keeps you stationary. Discipline feels demanding, but it moves you forward. When the mind is trained to choose discipline automatically, progress becomes inevitable. You stop negotiating with weakness and start operating from principle. A disciplined mind does not eliminate pleasure, it earns it. It understands that true satisfaction comes from progress and mastery, not ease. Each disciplined choice strengthens your capacity to handle greater responsibility and opportunity. When discipline becomes your default, life becomes simpler. You know what is required, and you do it. The mind, once conditioned, no longer resists effort. It seeks structure, challenge, and purpose. This transformation does not happen suddenly, but it happens surely through repeated choice. Conditioning your mind for discipline replaces hesitation with action and comfort with growth, shaping a life that is directed rather than delayed. Decide once, then act without hesitation, because hesitation is the space where doubt grows and opportunity fades. The moment a decision is made, energy is released. When that energy is delayed by second guessing, it weakens. Progress belongs to those who decide with clarity and move with conviction, not to those who repeatedly revisit choices they have already made. Most people do not fail from lack of ability. They fail from excessive deliberation. They decide, then reopen the decision. They commit, then question the commitment. This habit fractures focus and drains momentum, a decision that is constant. Try reconsidered is not a decision at all. It is a negotiation with fear. Fear thrives in uncertainty, and hesitation keeps uncertainty alive. To decide once is to draw a mental line. It is to say, this path is chosen and all energy will now move forward. When the mind knows that retreat is not an option, it redirects effort toward execution. Clarity of decision simplifies action. You stop asking whether you should move and start asking how to move more effectively. Hesitation often disguises itself as caution or preparation, but in many cases it is avoidance. While planning has its place, endless preparation delays growth. Action is the final test of any decision. Without it, intention remains theoretical. When you act immediately after deciding, you reinforce confidence and strengthen trust in yourself. The mind learns from experience, not from contemplation alone. Each time you decide and act without hesitation, you teach your mind that you are reliable. This self-trust compounds. Over time, decisions become easier and action becomes faster. Confidence grows not from perfect choices, but from decisive movement. Opportunity responds to speed. Many chances are time-sensitive and require boldness. Those who hesitate often arrive late or not at all. When you act promptly, you capture momentum and create advantage. Even imperfect action produces feedback, and feedback accelerates improvement. Hesitation also creates emotional friction. The longer you delay action, the heavier the task feels. The mind magnifies effort when action is postponed. Once you begin, resistance often dissolves. Deciding once and acting immediately reduces mental weight and preserves energy. To act without hesitation does not mean acting recklessly. It means acting decisively after sufficient thought. Once the decision is made, analysis must end. Continued analysis after decision undermines commitment. Discipline requires knowing when to think and when to move. The habit of decisive action builds resilience. When setbacks occur, you adjust quickly because you are not attached to indecision. You evaluate, decide, and act again. This adaptability keeps momentum alive even in difficulty. Many people seek certainty before acting, but certainty is a result of action, not a prerequisite. Clarity emerges through movement. When you decide and act, you gather information that refines your approach. Waiting for perfect clarity keeps you stationary. Deciding once also conserves mental energy. Repeated decision-making exhausts the mind. When you eliminate the option to reconsider, you free cognitive resources for execution. This efficiency improves performance and reduces stress. A decisive person commands respect, both from others and from themselves. This respect is earned through consistency. When actions align with decisions, credibility is built. You become someone who follows through, and that reputation opens doors. The world rewards those who move with purpose. While others wait, you advance. While others debate, you build. This forward motion compounds over time. Small, decisive actions accumulate into significant progress. Decide once, then act without hesitation, and you remove friction from growth. You stop wasting time on doubt and redirect it toward creation. The mind becomes aligned with purpose and effort becomes focused. Through decisive action, you transform intention into reality and momentum into achievement. Build the habit that builds every other habit, because one disciplined behavior repeated daily becomes the foundation upon which all progress rests. Success is not the result of many random efforts, but of one controlling habit that governs the rest. When this central habit is established, it influences thought, action, and identity, creating order where there was once inconsistency. Most people attempt to change too much at once. They chase multiple goals, adopt many routines, and quickly become overwhelmed. This scatter a pro. Each weakens commitment and produces frustration. Real transformation begins with focus. One habit practiced consistently can reorganize an entire life. The key is choosing a habit that strengthens self-control itself. The habit that builds every other habit is the habit of daily discipline. It is the practice of doing what you said you would do, regardless of mood or circumstance. This habit trains reliability. When you prove to yourself each day that your decisions lead to action, you establish trust in your own word. That trust becomes the engine of change. Habits shape identity more powerfully than goals. Goals point to a future result. Habits define who you are in the present. When you build a habit of discipline, you begin to see yourself as someone who follows through. This identity shift makes additional habits easier to adopt because they align with how you see yourself. Consistency matters more than intensity. A small habit repeated daily reshapes behavior more effectively than occasional bursts of effort. The mind responds to repetition. Each day you reinforce the habit, you strengthen the neural pathway that supports it. Over time, effort decreases and automaticity increases. The habit that builds all others simplifies decision-making. When discipline becomes routine, you no longer debate whether to act. Action becomes default. This reduces mental fatigue and increases efficiency. With fewer internal arguments, energy is redirected toward execution. Building this habit requires patience. Early stages feel uncomfortable because the behavior is not yet familiar. Resistance appears and progress seems slow. This is not failure, it is conditioning. Each repetition strengthens the habit, even when results are not immediately visible. Environment supports habit formation. When you design your surroundings to encourage discipline, you reduce reliance on willpower. Small adjustments remove friction and increase consistency. Over time, the habit integrates seamlessly into daily life. The habit of discipline also creates momentum. Success in one area builds confidence that transfers to others. When you experience control over your actions, you are more willing to challenge yourself further. This positive feedback loop accelerates growth. Many people abandon habits because they focus on outcomes instead of process. The habit that builds all others prioritizes process. It values showing up over immediate reward. This long-term orientation distinguishes sustainable change from temporary effort. Discipline also strengthens emotional regulation. When you act consistently, you reduce anxiety and increase stability. You know what to expect from yourself. This predictability creates calm and focus. Building this habit requires clear standards. Vague intentions produce weak habits. Clear, specific actions reinforce consistency. When expectations are defined, execution improves. The world constantly encourages distraction and convenience. Building the habit that builds all others requires conscious resistance to these influences. This resistance strengthens independence and self-mastery. Over time, the habit becomes self-reinforcing. Each success increases motivation, and motivation fuels further consistency. What begins as effort becomes identity. The habit that builds every other habit is not dramatic, but it is powerful. It operates quietly, shaping choices and directing behavior. Through daily repetition, it creates structure, confidence, and momentum. When this habit is established, growth becomes systematic rather than accidental, and progress becomes a natural outcome of who you have trained yourself to be. This is not about motivation that fades by noon or inspiration that disappears at the first sign of resistance. This is about command. This is about deciding who you are before the world attempts to decide for you. Every morning you are given a choice whether you recognize it or not. You can wake up and drift, or you can wake up and direct. One leads to repetition of the past, the other leads to the creation of a future. When you begin your day with purpose, command your mind, control your thoughts, affirm your identity, visualize victory, choose discipline over comfort, decide once and act without hesitation, you are no longer reacting to life. You are shaping it. These are not separate ideas, they are parts of one system. Together they form the habit that governs all other habits, the habit of self-mastery. Nothing changes overnight, but everything changes the moment you stop leaving your life to chance. Small decisions made consistently outweigh grand intentions made occasionally. The life you want is built quietly, through daily control of thought, emotion, and action. No one else can do this for you. No circumstance can replace it. No excuse can justify avoiding it. There will be days when discipline feels heavy and progress feels invisible. Those are the days that matter most. That is when character is formed. That is when identity is proven. Anyone can act when it is easy. Very few act when it is required. Be among the few. Do not wait for confidence to appear. Confidence is the result of keeping your word to yourself. Do not wait for clarity to arrive. Clarity is created by movement. Do not wait for the world to change. The world responds only after you do. Each morning is a fresh command center. Each decision is a vote for the person you are becoming. Choose deliberately. Act decisively. Repeat relentlessly. Over time, discipline replaces doubt, focus replaces fear, and progress replaces regret. This is how lives are changed. Not by luck, not by wishing, but by daily control and deliberate action. Start where you are. Start tomorrow morning. Take command and do not give it back.